Do you want to make buying items in your tabletop role-playing games easy and fast? Well, listen up, because that's what this video is all about. We're going to be talking about how to make shops actually work in your game and function real smooth. So you might be wondering what a shop is. I bet you know what a shop is in real life, but in a tabletop role-playing game, they mean something else. A shop is a place where players can go and buy items. It's basically a menu of items that's going to describe to them what they can purchase here in this store. It's not a comprehensive list of every single item in the entire game. No, it's just what's available in this store right now. You might be wondering, why use a shop? Well, if you use this method, it's going to speed up the time it takes to buy and refresh items. So it still makes using the player's resources like gold and arrows, ammunitions, rations, things like that, those consumable items, it still makes it worthwhile tracking without taking a ton of time to count all the beans at the table. You just give it to your players and then they can worry about doing it instead of trying to take forever to narrate every tiny detail, which we know is happening in the background. So every single store actually has 3 different levels in along the ley line. We've got basically the mundane stuff that would normally be found in a shop that you could think of in a medieval time there. That's level 1. And then level 2 is starting to creep into some magic items, but isn't super powerful magic items. And level 3 is super amazing, oh my goodness, I can't believe this item is for sale level of magic items. So the players in along the ley line can actually invest into the stores and level them up as they pool their resources together to make more magic items available to them. Now you as the referee can allow your players to do this, or you can start your shops at the different levels that you want to provide to your players. So if you want to give them super powerful magic items that help them fight monsters, well then you can have a level 3 blacksmith and they can buy magic weapons. But if you don't want them to have that, then you wouldn't put that in the store. You wouldn't allow that blacksmith of that level to be in the town. You can also set them for bakeries which have magic food that your players can eat, or you can have general stores which have magic blankets like the wet blanket, which is fun. You could have, what else? What other stores are there? I've forgotten my other stores. You could have a carpenter with barrels and magic trunks. There's lots of different magic shops and magic items in along the ley line, but this really can be applied to any game that you want. All that you're going to need to do is pick that level and then make a list of the items available to buy at the store. All right, so in your shop, all of your items need 3 things. So you need to know the name of the item, the description of the item, and the cost of the item. This is especially important for magic items. The players are going to need to know the special ability that the magic item has. You probably don't need to give an extensive description of a crowbar or a dagger because most players are familiar with those kind of mundane tools. But if your item is extremely out of the ordinary or entirely fantastical, you're going to have to tell your players what exactly the item does. Or not, if you want to leave it a giant mystery. Just be prepared to answer a ton of questions when your players start trying to use the item. Now, every single player at some point is going to look at the list of the cost and go, I'm not paying for that. That's way too expensive. When this happens, you can allow that player to make a barter check and then role play a reduction in cost. This is a great time for a narrative moment that the table would want to have. They're going to have a confrontation, a conflict with the shop owner, and maybe that shop owner is going to want to resolve it. Maybe they can, trade some things in or make some kind of deal or do a quest for that shop owner, and that could reduce the cost of this item that they don't want to pay full price for. It allows for story moments while they're shopping. That's when you want to slow down and actually participate and bring the whole table in, is when there's conflict to be resolved in the cost of buying goods. You don't want to stop this for like, hey, I want to reduce the cost of rations. Like, don't even allow your players to do that unless you really want to count beans. No, the cost of the rations is the same. Everybody's paying this price for the food. But if it's like a bigger item, something that costs 100 gold and they want to try to reduce it, that would be a time to slow down. You know, nobody's going to tell you a story about how they saved 3 cents on a loaf of bread, but people are going to tell you if they saved thousands of dollars buying a car. That's the time where you want to slow down and talk about the story and talk about the bartering, is when it's for bigger stuff like that. Another thing that players can use their barter checks for is actually for trying to find items that aren't in the store. So if your players are looking for an item and it's not in the city, it's not in the store, this is a great time to actually add that narrative oomph that we want to bring to shopping moments. If it's a specialty crafted item that the players need, maybe they want their name embossed onto their backpack or their sword, then that would be a moment where they could have a barter check and it would actually add to the story. It's more than just refilling the arrows. Or if they're looking for a very specific magic item that they don't have in town, that's when we're going to try to make that barter check to see if it's in town. Now, if they succeed on this barter check, then they're going to have to check to see if it's in town or if they need to order it. If this is an item that you don't have prepared and it's not in the referee's toolkit or whatever source book that you're using, then you're going to want to say, hey, it's gonna take a few weeks to get her or at least a couple of days. This is gonna give you time as a referee to come up with the description for the item that the player is trying to get. Now, you could do this with the player themselves, but you probably want to do that not at the table in the middle of the game, but maybe after the game and just workshop it with that player. How do you want this to work? What are the kind of things you want it to do? And then you can write the description according to the way that you understand the rules. All right, let's talk about maybe some pitfalls and troubleshooting that you might run into when you're employing shops like this. Maybe you didn't list everything possible on your shop. Well, that's where dungeon gear can come in handy. If it is a mundane item, they can simply buy the dungeon gear and it can become the other thing that they want. They could even specifically say what it is when they're buying it and maybe save a few gold by saying that instead of picking the dungeon gear, but allow them to come up with different things that would normally be available. This can be quickly resolved with things like a player might ask, hey, can I buy a candle here? Sure, you can get a candle. It's gonna be like 2 gold. You can still verbally agree on the things that would be in the shop if it's not listed on the table. The table is just simply to allow the players to quickly buy normal things that they would normally have access to. You can still resolve things outside normally in discussion otherwise. Something else that you might run into trouble with is if you haven't printed off the shops as pieces of paper that you can pass out to your players, or if you're doing this digitally, if you don't have screenshots of the specific lists on the shops. So just prepare ahead of time when you're planning your settlement, your village, wherever the players are going to be, and have that available to your players, or ideally your players have the resources, have those source books, and you could just tell them, hey, go to this page, it's a level 1 store of whatever kind. Or if you've got the book at the table, you could pass it around. If they don't have access to that, then this method isn't gonna work as well. So it takes a little bit of pre-planning. You're gonna have to come up with the items and the costs ahead of time in order for this to work well at the table. But I promise you, an ounce of preparation is worth a pound of cure. By doing this simple preparation, you only have to do it once for the town. You don't have to do it again. And every single time when they want to go buy stuff, you just pull out that paper, hand it to them, or send them a screenshot, and they've got everything that they need. They can take care of it on their end, and it saves time at the table. Well, I hope this discussion about shops and how to use items helps your game run more smoothly. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, go ahead and give that a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I hope all of your games are full of dread and laughter.